Soccer is one of the various ways that brings together the human race today. In events like the FIFA World Cup, billions of people come together to watch athletes from different parts of the world compete at a single championship, which is the champion title road of the whole human race. Different countries, with different cultures, colors, religions, and all of this together in Brazil, a perfect place where it house all those cultures together. However, it isn't so perfect like most think. Since long time ago, there are many problems involving our country that are affecting not only our soccer but other things too. One of the worst problems that we have in our society that is affecting soccer is the racism. This shouldn't happen anymore, since more than half of Brazil's population is black or brown. And it isn't different in soccer. Many cases of racism have been happening not only in Brazil but also in the entire world since the 1950s. Some of them you should have heard, but some nobody noticed, especially those who happened a long time ago, because at that time it was considered kind of normal. When soccer came to Brazil at the beginning of the 20th century, it was an English sport that only the elite used to practice, and the poor workers couldn't play this sport, especially if they were black or brown. At that time, soccer was only for the rich ones, but there were some companies which let their employees play soccer, and all started at this moment. But only a few years later, professional teams started to play with black soccer players. There are some ways to explain why racism is becoming more present in our soccer. One of them is that nowadays the media is becoming stronger and started to notice every case of racism present in the most popular sport in the world. At the 1950s, it wasn't like that. There were just some successful black soccer players, and those few used to suffer a lot because of their color skin and because of the media that wasn't so strong like nowadays. For example, in the 1950s World Cup in Brazil, the home team was defeated in the final by Uruguay for 2-1. All the Brazilian players were criticized, but the black players were not only very hard criticized, but also they received the fault of the loss they suffered, especially the goalkeeper, Barbosa, which had failed on the last goal from Uruguay. Because of the fail and his skin color, he received not only most of the fault for the loss as well as guilty from Brazilian fans. Many other black players were victims of racism during their career, just like Pelé, Garrincha, Didi, Jairzinho, Vavá, Djalma dos Santos, and many others. Being a soccer player when you are black at that time was very hard. In every game racism was present, but nobody noticed. The players couldn't do anything, and if they did something, they would be criticized of their attitude. Some other interesting cases happened during the 20th century that can prove racism present in the Brazil team during different World Cups. The best example is the team of 1982, considered for most of the fans and journalists in the world the best Brazil team ever that played and lost a World Cup. Curious are that this team was composed by a majority of white players with a good financial situation. However, there were 4 blacks and brown players, and guess what? They received the fault of the loss for Italy by 3-2. Again, racism can be proved if these situations were present in the past. Nowadays, racism is still very present in our society, just like in the past. But because of the new media and those new technologies, many cases of racism are becoming noticed to the public, who are not happy on seeing many cases in the popular sport in the world. The population is now complaining for a better situation in cases like that. One of the cases that is very noticed until today is from the player Graffiti, when he was playing with Quilmes, an Argentinian team, in the Libertadores of 2005 for São Paulo. The Brazilian player was accused of many racist ways from the player of Quilmes, De Zapato. The situation got out of control and Graffiti hit the Argentinian player. At the end of the game, De Zapato had a decree to be arrested for racist insults. After 2 days in jail, the player was out of the prison after his club paid a bail of 10,000 reais. One of the famous cases of racism of all time in Brazil was with the Cruzeiro player Tinga in the Libertadores of 2014. In a game on Peru with Real Garcilaso, the Brazilian player, who had played only the second half of the game, heard every time he was with the ball sounds of monkey coming from the local fans. After the game, Tinga said about the racism he suffers and that he wanted a world with equality among all races and classes. He also explained that in the middle of the game, he couldn't forget the situation he was passing through. Some campaigns were realized after the case of Tinga in order to prevent racism in soccer, but none of them worked too much, since racism is still very present. This year, a fan of Santos used the power of racism to curse via social network Arouca, a Palmeiras soccer player that used to play in the Santos after going to Palmeiras. And it wasn't the first time Arouca suffered racism. In 2004, when he was playing for Santos with the Mojimirim team, a similar situation happened too. After scoring one goal, fans of the other team called the player a monkey and that he should search an Afrikaner team to play. I interviewed Arouca and asked him some questions. One of them was, what was the difference between the two cases of racism that you suffered? Which one was worse?
Acho que no caso do Santos foi pior, porque a situação lá, o torcedor foi covarde, falou e acabei escutando, mas depois ele sumiu, ninguém conseguiu ver a cara do torcedor. E no caso do Palmeiras, ao menos todo mundo viu, né, a cara de quem publicou aquela, aquela situação lá, entendeu? Aquele ato racista.
After all of this, we can clearly see that racism is still very present in our society. It started in the beginning of the soccer history, and until today it is very present not only in Brazil, but also in the entire world. Racism is something very serious that shouldn't exist anymore. The situation we are passing through in the entire world is something that started many centuries before, with the European dominating Africa, enslaving the population there and spreading around the world these cultures that until nowadays it is present in our society. Only education, campaigns against racism, and a good attitude in any situation can change the world we are living.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours, it will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure.